Hey, Mike, West Calloway here from Truth Lives. Just want to share a quick message with you all. And it's from the subject of sharing your story. So I know me personally, I always had this problem and struggle with sharing my story, sharing my faith. How am I supposed to speak with people? How does he expect me to talk to people and really share what Jesus has done in my life? And I know a lot of us are struggling with the same issues, and a lot of us are wondering, hey, how do I speak to people? How do I go out there and teach people and make disciples of people? Because we know we're supposed to be doing it, but it's not the easiest thing to do. So we're just going to talk a little bit about sharing your story, and it's a really quick message. So let's see what God has to say about this. So if you look at John chapter 4, the Gospel of John chapter 4, there's a story about the Samaritan woman. And the story is Jesus comes from Jerusalem. Him and his crew comes from Jerusalem, and they're just coming from avoiding some confrontation with the Pharisees and all of the religious people of Jerusalem in their time. So as they're leaving from Jerusalem, going to Galilee, they have to pass through Samaria. So they're passing through Samaria, and Jesus is tired and he's hungry. So the disciples go out into a town in Samaria to go get him some food. So Jesus says, okay, I'll just chill here at the well. So Jesus is sitting at this well, and his disciples are long gone, and the Samaritan woman comes to the well. So then he asks the woman for some water, and she asks, why are you talking to me? You're for one, you're Jewish, and for two, you're mad, because it wasn't practiced that men would speak to women and acknowledge them in such a way, and even for Jewish people to acknowledge Samaritans, because they didn't have each other in their best interest. They actually hated each other. But Jesus held a conversation with this woman, and they were talking, and he told her about her story. He prophesied to her and said, hey, you had 5 husbands. And she said, hey, how do you know this? I perceive that you're a prophet. And she asked him, why they worship in Jerusalem. And she just started asking him a bunch of questions. And she said, well, when the Messiah comes, he'll tell us about all of this. So he said, I am he. I'm who you speak of. I'm the Messiah. So his disciples come back, and they see him talking to this lady, and they're like, okay, why is he talking to him? They didn't ask, why are you talking to her, or what questions do you have for him? But they're puzzled. And after he tells her this, she leaves her jar of water, and she goes into the town. And she goes into the town, and she tells everyone, hey, a guy's out there, and he told me all I ever done. Could this be the Messiah? So they're puzzled. They're like, hey, what is this? So everyone leaves the town, and they go back out to the well, and there Jesus is, and he speaks to them, and they ask him to stay with them for 2 days, and he stayed with them. And after he stayed with them for 2 days, they said, you know what? We believe that you are the Savior of the world. And that's pretty much the story. But there's a few things we want to talk about in that story, and we can really pinpoint it, and it'll help us share our story. So the biggest point is she shared her story. She didn't do anything overly complicated, nothing too overly religious. She just shared her story. And if we go through the story, and we see what actually happened, it all started with her encountering Jesus. She encountered God. And many of us have our own experiences when we encounter God. So she encountered God, and it was that encounter that allowed her to know who she was speaking to. And when she really found out who she was speaking to, she left everything she was doing. And much like she did, so must we must leave some of the vain pursuits that we have and different things like that, and truly just drop our jar and go on to tell others, because that's the next thing she did. She told others. She went to the town and she told them what she saw, and this is the essence of sharing our story. She didn't go preach to them or anything like that. She simply went and was a witness of what she had saw. And so we to do the same things. We ought to go and just tell people what we saw. Tell them your experience with Jesus, and how you got saved and different things like that. And just share your story. And it was by her sharing her story that made them so curious that she led them back to Jesus. And this is the great part. When she led them back to Jesus, Jesus did the rest. And the story says, like we spoke earlier, they said, we believe that he is the Savior of the world, not because of what she said, but because of what he said. So her story and her message was just a vehicle to get them to Jesus. And once they got to Jesus, the burden was lifted off of her, and Jesus handled the rest. So much we share our story. So don't be stressed. Don't be stressed, and don't be fearful. Just simply share your story. So I know since we're talking about sharing our story, we want some actionable things, right? Like, how do I share my story? So here's a quick guide to sharing your story and getting your witness, your testimony together. Here's 4 points. The first point is, when you're sharing your story with people, is you tell them your life and your attitudes before you were a Christian. That's the first part of your story. Okay. The second part of your story is how you realized God was speaking to you, or how I realized God was speaking to me. The third part of your story is how you became a Christian. What event was it that caused you to be a Christian, or was it a series of events? And the fourth part is, what does being a Christian mean to me? And those 4 key parts will help you formulate your story and be able to really able to share it and articulate it within a matter of 2 to 5 minutes. And you'd be surprised at the power that story can simply have by people saying what you saw and that drawing them to Jesus. So just take that with you and share your story. Imagine what the world would look like if we all just simply shared our story. How many people would come to Christ? How many people would know the true miracles in your life and know what's going on? And how many relationships could even be built? So with that said, no stress, no fear, just simply share your story. Thanks. Bless you.